This episode of The Bill and Callie Show is brought to you by
Connections Restored, helping people who have suffered from trauma, PTSD, and addictions. Connect with us at connectionsrestored.com. Connections Restored.
How are you today? Welcome to episode 36 of Connections Restored TV. I am Amy Boswinkle. I'm so excited to share today with you. I am an intuitive and a life, business, and health coach, and I'm so excited to share today's episode with you, and that is how to maintain personal power, right? What do you think of when you guys hear the words personal power? I know the first time that I heard personal power, I was like, what is personal power? And it took me a minute. I had to really sit and think and reflect. And I really love those questions that challenge our cerebellum rather than our prefrontal cortex, because it allows us to go into a deeper space of reflection rather than reaction and knowing and, the space where we learn all kinds of information, the little computer part of our brain, right? When we're utilizing the cerebellum, we're actually utilizing a completely different part of our brain that allows us to tap into who we really are and how we can decipher who we are in this world and who we're being in this world and who we want to be in this world. Because what I've found on this journey is that there are so many people who get caught up in other people's experiences. And I'm not saying that that's bad or that's wrong, but when we do that, what we literally do is we give so much of our energy and so much of our feelings are attached to other people's results, other people's outcomes, other people's path, right? And we will literally create this really codependent energy around trying to make sure that we are making sure the people, especially the people that we love the most in our life, are making the right decisions, staying on the right track. We're giving them a to-do list. You should be doing this. You should be doing that. I know better than you. I'm not going to let you make decisions, right? And then what we're literally doing is we're taking away another person's power to make choices for themselves. And when another person's choice is taken away from them, they're going to, one of two things, right? They're going to fight back because they're going to get really, really angry. And they're going to be like, who are you? Who are you to tell me what to do? I'm going to do what I want. There's a version of me who's like that, but there's this version of me who would cower, right? That would allow other people to maintain control and power over me. And I would allow people to dictate to me, this is the way this goes. If you don't do this right, then you're wrong and I'm right. And you need to make sure that you go back and you do it this way, because if you do it this way, everything's going to work out just right. And when I did the work another person's way, it worked out. I'm not saying that it didn't, but I leaked energy all over the place. Number one, because I was trying to satisfy somebody else's want and need for me. And another reason is because I had to make sure everything was perfect. It strengthened the perfectionist in me and being like, right? Because as much as I was a rebel, I also didn't like to be yelled at, right? Because when another person was disappointed in me or frustrated with me or angry with me, I didn't really like the way that energy felt in my heart, because I'm very empathic and I used to be incredibly sympathetic, right? I would allow other people's experiences to come into my world and I would emit sympathy and leak my energy all over the place. And when I learned empathy, it was this completely different space that, yes, I could still feel and understand where another person was coming from, but I allowed them to remain sovereign and I could recognize that they were in a place that they were in based on the choices that they had made in their life, and that I could be in that experience with them, but hold no energetic attachment to their emotions. And I could have no judgment toward the experience that they were in, but I still had empathy for what they were walking through, right? Such as the human experience, being able to look out at the world and witness other people and see the experiences that they are walking through and not get all entangled, right? Like, I have been so entangled in other people's feelings. I've been so entangled in trying to figure out, right? Like trying to figure out, like, if I can just get them to see. Have you guys ever done this? Put a yes in the comments below. Have you ever been in this space where you can literally see where people are about to fall off track and you love these people and you don't want them to fall off track? And the truth is, do we learn best when other people direct us in what to do, or do we learn best when we make mistakes? Because I know that I learned best when I made mistakes. And, being that I used to be an alcoholic and a drug addict, right? And I've healed from so many different traumas, and standing in a completely different empowered space in my life, not being in that trauma role, not living those traumas over and over and over every day, but literally rewiring my thinking and gaining a sense of emotional intelligence and working with people and who have been traumatized, who want to build businesses based off of their trauma, because what better experience to build a business off of, right? If you want to be an energy healer, if you want to be a business person, if you want to teach people how to let go of grief, if you want to teach people how to let go of fear, if you want to help people lose weight, whatever it is you want to help people with, right? What better experience than the one that you have personally walked through, and all the mistakes that you made into getting where you are right now, right? All those mistakes were just teachers. They were teachers and lessons that allowed you to arrive with the clarity, with the knowledge, with the insight, with the awareness to understand where other people are. But when other people are directing us, turn left, turn right, go up, go down, do this, do that, and not allowing us to make our own choices and to make our own mistakes, then we shut down in time. I know I did. I lived in a prison cell within my own self, within my own body, within my own mind, within my own thought system, and I was completely and totally disconnected from myself for so long. I was completely and totally caught up in my mind and the way that my mind just had these thoughts that I just followed without questioning them, because I thought it was the right path. But every single time I had those thoughts and I allowed another person to come in and dictate to me how I wanted to run my life, I got more and more and more and more afraid. I got more and more and more scared to make mistakes. The perfectionist me got bigger and stronger, and I was always trying to live in these constructs of what life dictated life should look like for me, and it was so exhausting. And the only reprieve that I could personally find was through alcohol and drugs at that time. But then as I started to heal from alcohol and drugs, and as I started to heal from all of the traumas that I had walked through, I started to understand that I was addicted to the thoughts in my own mind. And I had to sit down and learn that I could gain awareness of my thoughts, and I could make a more empowered choice with where I wanted to direct my thinking. And that was mind-blowing to me, right? That I was literally living in this energetic frequency of fear, right? And in this energetic frequency of fear, I allowed other people to control me, and in turn, I tried to control other people. And what came of that was this really entangled, mushy, yucky mess of physical, verbal fighting. Maybe some of you have experienced like physical fighting, like you get physical with people because like they're not doing what you want. And why can't they hear you, right? But it would always be this verbal fighting with people and like, why can't you see things my way? And what I came to realize is everybody on this planet is having their own perspective and their own perception of life. And they're making all the choices based upon their past experiences, which has led them to the moment that they're in right now. And who am I to dictate or make a person choose? Like, isn't it more empowering if I help to give another person clarity around where they're at? Right? So it's not like I'm saying, like, I see that you're in a really messed up place. I'm not going to help you. It's really about having non-judgment for the space another person's at, not judging them at all for being frustrated, not judging them at all for being angry, not judging them at all for drinking every night and losing their job. And that's really hard, especially when it's someone we love a lot, like our children or our significant other or a parent or a child. That's really hard, right? Because we've become so entangled in being in this emotional roller coaster that creates this physical roller coaster of like, if you just did this, if you just listened to me, if you... But what that person knows of their experience and how they've lived their life is correct and right for them, as long as they're happy, right? Because I know so many people, I have talked to so many people, and I have worked with so many people now, that there are so many people on this planet who say they want a change in their life, but all they do is they're like the boy who cried wolf, right? There are a lot of people on this planet who say that they want to change something about themselves, yet they don't go to any length to create the change. And I started to question that, and I was like, well, if there's this energetic currency on this planet of fear, right? Like if there's this energy of fear, and like what is that connected to, right? Like this energy of fear is connected to control, right? Like I was either controlling and being very controlling of my own self and my perfectionistic ways, or I was allowing another person to control me because I didn't want to disappoint them, because I didn't want to make them angry with me, because I didn't want them to argue with me. And I lived in this really disempowered place for a really long time, and I started to think different thoughts. I was like, well, what would allow me to hold my power? Like what would allow me to hold my power? What would allow me to be me, but still speak from a place of kindness and compassion and allow another person to understand, like, here's my boundaries. Like, I hear what you're saying and I respect you and I see that your way works for you, but like I've got to find my own way. I've got to make my own mistakes, and it is hard. I am not saying it is easy, right? It is hard to watch someone you love doing something that is harming them. Okay, I did it for years and years and years with drinking and alcohol and making really poor choices and hanging out with people who really didn't lift me up. Instead, they kind of, squashed me down, but that's just the energetic frequency that I was in. That's what I was available for, and that's what I chose. Right? I chose to be in those experiences because I could have chosen differently, but I was in so much pain. That was the only way I knew how to feel free within my body. Right? So I kept choosing over and over and over again these like really controlling experiences. I could control being numbed out, right? And what I wanted to do is I wanted to be numbed out and disconnected and not connected to myself all of the time. I didn't want to be connected to me. I wanted to be numb. I wanted to not have to think. I wanted to not have to deal with life. I wanted to numb out so I didn't have to deal with life because I really didn't know how. So what allowed me to connect to my power? What, like when I made that shift, what allowed me to connect to my power? Well, what allowed me to connect to my power is when I was able to use my voice. I had lost my voice for a really long time. I would get all these, I don't know if this is you, and if this is you, put a yes in the comments, because I would love to see how many of you resonate with this. But I would, I was so disempowered in my own life, and so disempowered from speaking up for myself, that I would be in front of another person and they would be saying something to me, and I'd get all of these emotions in my heart and my throat. Like I would want to say something, but my throat would get really tight. And I would want to say something, but I just couldn't, because there was this like pressure and this tightness and this like pain almost in my lymph nodes and like up and down my throat, because I was too afraid to tell another person what it was I really wanted. But then one day I got told this really empowering thing that I had never thought of before. Nobody had ever told me that my story was my most powerful tool, and that my story had the power to walk another person through their pain, that just my words, just me expressing who I was, had the power to change the trajectory of someone's life or someone's moment in time or someone's day. I had never been told that before. Because the place I lived in before that was that I was stupid and fat and ugly and all these other horrible, horrible stories that I told myself, and it was freeing. I took my power back. It was a moment of being able to take my power back and be like, these experiences, this story, the story of Amy Boswinkle has the power to help another person. When all I had been told is that I had made bad choices, that I couldn't have a particular job because of my criminal record, because I wasn't good enough, I wasn't pretty enough, I wasn't this enough, I wasn't that enough. I started to get empowered, and I started to get told that how I looked was exactly perfect, and that my voice was exactly perfect for the right people, and that my way that I held myself was exactly perfect for the right people, right? That I started to gain this power, and I started to be like, oh, I was created to be a vessel, right? A vessel for the universe, to be able to speak about pain and help people understand it in a different way, and shift that perspective and shift that belief system, and help them understand their emotions and their feeling in this more intelligent way, to the best of their ability, and not judge them for it, to allow them to be witnessed, to allow them to express where they were, to allow them to make more empowered choices, which in turn open them up and turn them back on to life. And as they did this, people started to tell me, you know, that talk you gave, I used to give free talks in my community. That talk you gave, I would give 1 hour talks, you guys. I haven't drank for a year because of that talk you gave. You know, what a blessing. What a blessing. I would just go and I would just speak and I would just share my truth. And at the end of the talks, people would come and talk to me and they would tell me about their life, and I would get to know them for just a few minutes. Get to know their name, who they were, hear a little bit about them. And people reach out and say they hadn't smoked cigarettes in a year from just one talk. They came to one talk that I spoke for 1 hour. And I know it wasn't me. It was just the story. It was the energy that unlocked something inside of them. Something shifted in just the right way. So what if we allowed people in our life to make empowered decisions for themselves, even if we knew that it was going to take them down a path that was destructive? I know that that's really hard to swallow, right? But what if their choice is their choice, but in allowing them to make that choice, they started to recognize, right? They started to recognize that they were the creator of the reality that they had. And we just started to listen to them, and we didn't try to control them or fix them or try to tell them that they were wrong or the choices that they were making were horrible, right? Like we could just have a lot of empathy. What if we ask people, even when they're in the throes of the most horrible places of their life, like, what makes you happy? And get their mind to start shifting and thinking about a direction that their mind isn't in that moment. Right? What if we just asked people very empowering questions? What is it about X, Y, or Z that brings you such joy? Well, drinking doesn't really bring me joy. Well, this is the thing that I've learned, is that people will not do the things that they really don't want to do, right? So that means we do like to do the things we do, even if they make us miserable, right? There is a positive intention behind every choice that we make, even if we know that decision is going to bring us pain. There's a positive intention behind everything that we do. And sometimes that positive intention is not having to deal with life because we don't know how. The most empowering thing my dad ever did for me, because they had been very codependent for me in my drinking and alcohol journey. But the most amazing thing my dad ever did for me is he had gotten really sick and tired of me drinking and using drugs and becoming a version of myself that wasn't this person. Because when I tell you guys I was a monster when I used, I was a monster. It was like Dr. Jekyll and Mr Hyde. It was like I became a completely different person because I'm allergic to those things. That's the best word that I know how to use it. It literally makes me become a different person. I'm a person that I don't like and I don't want to be anymore. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with drinking or using drugs or any of those things. I'm just saying that those are choices that I no longer desire to make, because I like to feel empowered. I like to feel free in a way that is freeing for me, not a jail cell kind of freedom. But my dad told me I had to leave the house and that I was never allowed to come back. And that even if he never ever saw me again, that he would always love me. And that I had to go. That changed me. And I started to choose the desire to get sober, and it was a journey. But I needed to hear him say that. I needed to hear him be a different version of himself so I could become a different version of myself. And I know how hard that was for him. That was hard, because I know my dad loves me a lot. But he didn't know what else to do. So he decided to say something different, because he's smart like that. My dad's really smart. And I messed up. And I would be clean for a while, and I would mess up, and I would be clean for a while, and I would mess up, and I would be clean for a while, you know? And I kept making mistakes But eventually I arrived. Eventually I arrived. I found my way. I kept trying new things. I kept on this personal development journey until I understood, right? Because knowledge does not equal behavior change. Just because we know things, just because we're told things, just because we go places and people say things to us doesn't mean we understand it, because understanding is a completely different depth than knowledge. Understanding comes from taking action. Understanding comes from gaining awareness, and in the awareness, gaining clarity of our choices. Gaining clarity of our choices. Because we're always making a choice, right? Because we can choose to go to the gym because we know that it makes us feel good, and we know that working out releases serotonin and endorphins and we feel really good. Or we can choose to live in the excuse of, I'm too tired, I'm too busy, I'm too this, I'm too that, right? And I'm good at that too. I'm good at it until I get sick and tired of it, and then I know what I need to do, right? I have to prioritize what's important to me in my life, and it really boils down to that. What are our priorities? What do we want? What are we willing to do, and what are we just saying we want to do, and we're actually not really willing to change anything at all? Because I know when I work with clients, when they're stuck and I'm like, hey, you know what, blah, 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 and we pull out of them, I'm asking them questions, because I use NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, because it's the study of language, right? It's the study of language and getting people to understand their own languaging and getting them to understand what they're saying and reflecting it back to them. It is life-changing, and so life-changing that I got a certification as a master practitioner in it, right? Because like just learning how to shift language to a more empowering type of language allows us to do this, right? And as I'm reflecting back with certain ones of my clients, you know, they're literally telling me what their next step is, what they need to do to shift and like do the thing that's going to open up their heart. And then they're still stuck in this space of, well, is that really going to work? Well, you just reflected to me in your language, right, that it was. And if we aren't willing to change our behavior, then that means we just like the idea of what we want, right? We change when we change the behavior. And sometimes changing the behavior means catching our thoughts, the destructive thoughts, the negative thoughts, the thoughts that are controlling, and we shift it to the energy, right? We shift it to the energy of acceptance. We shift it to the energy of love. We shift it to the energy of, I can do this. I can do this. One choice at a time, because there are choices to our decisions. Every choice, every decision has a choice, right? We can choose to continue to press snooze on that alarm button, even though we say we want to go to the gym, or we can choose to get up and painfully at first walk around the block, right? Start small, little bite-sized chunks, not like, I gotta go run a marathon, which I've done, and that's a story for another day. It's a funny story too, right? But we can just start with walking around the block. We can start with walking up and down our stairs 3 or 4 times, if you guys have stairs in your house, or your apartment, or your condo, or wherever it is you live. Or if you live outside, right? Some people might be watching this, they don't have their choice isn't to live in a internal home. They might have an external home, while walking up and down the street or facility or forest where you live. one choice at a time. That's where it starts. What is the empowered choice that you're going to make today for your life? How will you shift that, and how will you take your power back today? What is your story? What is your experience? You're important. You are so important. You are an integral piece of the puzzle on this planet, and I believe in you. I love you all so much. Thank you so much for supporting Connections Restored TV. I am an affiliate of the Bill and Callie Show Network. Please make sure you like and follow Bill and Callie here on Facebook at the Bill and Callie Show page. Make sure you're following me at Connections Restored. That is my business page. If you feel called to reach out to me, if you would like to have a conversation, please feel free to reach out to me through my business page on Messenger, or friend request me here on Facebook, Amy Boswinkle, AMIEE BOSWINKLE. This is episode 36 of Connections Restored TV. And this was how to hold on to your personal power. I am an intuitive and a life, health, and business coach. I love you all so much. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll talk to you guys again next week. Take care. Bye-bye.
This episode of The Bill and Callie Show is brought to you by
Connections Restored, helping people who suffer from trauma, PTSD, and addictions. Connect with us at connectionsrestored.com. Connections Restored.